You are not silent because you have nothing to say. You are silent because you are afraid of how your English will sound when it leaves your mouth. Your English is improving, but shame still makes you speak softly, choose smaller words, and hide the real thoughts inside you. One mistake feels like proof that you are not ready. One correction feels personal. One laugh can remain in your mind for years. But your English does not need to be perfect before it deserves to be heard. The English-speaking shame barrier will teach you how to stop connecting mistakes with humiliation, stop apologizing for your voice, and speak even when nervousness is still present. Subscribe to English Mindset Academy, stay until the final chapter, and remember this: your accent is not shameful. Your mistakes are not your identity, and your voice should not remain hidden while it is still learning. Chapter 1: The Hidden Reasons Speaking English Feels So Personal. Speaking English should be a language activity, but for many learners it feels like something much deeper. A small mistake does not feel like only a mistake. It feels like exposure. You say one word incorrectly, forget a simple expression, or pause too long, and suddenly you do not feel like a learner anymore. You feel unintelligent. You feel smaller. You feel as though the listener is not only hearing your English but judging your entire personality through it. This is why speaking can feel so painful even when your English is improving. The real fear is often not, "What if my grammar is wrong?" The deeper fear is, "What if they think I am not intelligent? What if they lose respect for me? What if I sound childish? What if they notice that I am nervous?" When you speak your first language, your humor, confidence, knowledge, and personality come out naturally. You can explain complicated ideas, defend your opinion, tell stories, and show emotion without fighting for every word. But in English, you may sound quieter than you really are. You may use simple words even when your thoughts are deep. You may give short answers even when you have much more to say. You may avoid jokes because you are afraid they will not sound right. You may remain silent in a group and later think of everything you wanted to say. That gap between who you are inside and how you sound in English creates shame. You know you are not empty, but your English may make you appear less confident, less interesting, or less capable than you truly are. This is why speaking English can feel personal. The language is touching your identity. You are not only trying to produce a sentence, you are trying to protect the way other people see you. Imagine that someone asks for your opinion during a meeting. You know the answer, you have experience. You may even understand the subject better than some of the other people in the room. But before you speak, your mind begins checking everything. Is this word correct? Will my pronunciation sound strange? What if I lose the sentence? What if they ask another question? While your mind is trying to protect you from embarrassment, the moment passes. Someone else answers. You remain silent. Later, you feel frustrated because the problem was not a lack of knowledge. The problem was that shame did not allow your knowledge to become a voice. This happens in ordinary conversations too. Someone tells a story and you want to respond, but you need a few seconds to organize your sentence. Before you are ready, the conversation moves forward. You smile, nod, and say nothing. Inside, you feel left behind. Over time, this can create a painful belief. Maybe I am not a speaking person, but that belief is false. You are not naturally silent. You have simply learned that speaking English feels risky. Perhaps someone laughed at your pronunciation in the past. Perhaps a teacher corrected you harshly. Perhaps you were asked a question and your mind became completely blank. Perhaps you compared yourself with a fluent speaker and felt that your own English was embarrassing. The event may have lasted only a few seconds, but your mind remembered the emotion. Now, whenever you speak, it tries to prevent the same pain from happening again. It tells you, be careful, use an easier sentence, do not speak too much, wait until your English is better. This voice sounds protective, but it slowly becomes a barrier. The less you speak, the more powerful the fear becomes. You never collect new evidence that people can understand you, that mistakes can be survived, or that a conversation can continue after an imperfect sentence. Shame grows in silence. Courage grows through use. This is why waiting to feel completely confident rarely works. Confidence usually does not arrive before speaking. It grows after you speak and discover that the world did not collapse. You made a mistake, but the listener still understood. You paused, but the conversation continued. Your accent was noticeable, but your message still mattered. You forgot a word, but you found another way to explain it. These moments teach your mind a new lesson. I can be heard without being perfect. That is the lesson you need. You must also separate your English level from your intelligence. English is a skill you are developing. It is not a measurement of your mind. A highly intelligent person can sound simple in a new language because their vocabulary and speaking reflex are still growing. A less experienced person may sound fluent because they have used the language longer. Fluency and intelligence are not the same thing. Never judge the size of your mind by the size of one English sentence. When you speak imperfectly, you are not revealing a weak mind. You are revealing a developing skill. This distinction matters because shame tells you that every mistake exposes who you are, but a mistake only shows where your English is today. It says nothing final about your worth, your ability, or your future. A child learning to walk does not feel ashamed of falling. Falling is part of the process that creates balance. Speaking mistakes serve the same purpose. They show you what needs repetition. They strengthen your response. They turn knowledge into usable skill. The mistake is not the enemy. The meaning you attach to the mistake creates the pain. If you think, I made a mistake so I should practice this, the moment becomes useful. If you think, I made a mistake so I am embarrassing, the moment becomes shame. The same event can either teach you or silence you. From today, begin changing the interpretation. When you pause, do not say, my English is terrible. Say, my mind is learning to organize language in real time. When you forget a word, do not say, I know nothing. Say, this word is not available yet, so I will use another way. When someone corrects you, do not hear, you are not good enough. Here is one small part of my English that can become stronger. This does not mean every correction will feel comfortable. It means discomfort no longer needs to become humiliation. You are allowed to be a learner in public. You are allowed to take time. You are allowed to sound imperfect while becoming better. One of the strongest things you can do is stop hiding the fact that you are learning. You do not need to apologize before every sentence. Do not say, sorry, my English is bad. That sentence teaches both you and the listener to focus on your weakness before they have even heard your message. Instead, begin with the idea. Let your English do its best. If something becomes unclear, explain it again. If a mistake appears, correct it calmly or continue. The purpose of the conversation is communication, not proving that you never struggle. You may still feel nervous. That is normal. Courage is not the absence of nervousness. Courage is refusing to let nervousness make every decision. The next time you want to speak but shame tells you to remain silent, begin with one complete sentence. Not a perfect sentence, not an advanced sentence, one honest sentence. Say the opinion, ask the question, tell the small story. Allow your real personality to appear through the English you have today. Your voice will not become free by remaining hidden until it is flawless. It becomes free when you use it, hear it, improve it, and slowly stop treating every imperfection as something shameful. You are more than the sentence you struggle to say. You are more than your accent. You are more than one forgotten word. English is not exposing your weakness. It is revealing your courage to communicate in a language you are still building. And once you understand that, speaking stops feeling like a test of your worth. It becomes what it was always supposed to be, a skill you are allowed to learn. Chapter 2. The embarrassing moment your mind keeps replaying. Sometimes your fear of speaking English did not begin with grammar, vocabulary, or pronunciation. It began with one painful moment. Maybe you pronounced a word incorrectly and someone laughed. Maybe a teacher corrected you in front of everyone. Maybe you tried to answer a simple question, but your mind went blank while people waited. Maybe someone said, I cannot understand you. And even though the conversation ended, those words stayed inside you. The moment may have lasted only a few seconds, but your mind turned it into a warning. Now, whenever a similar situation appears, you are not only facing the present conversation, you are also facing the memory of what happened before. Your body reacts first. Your heart becomes faster. Your mouth feels dry. Your voice becomes smaller. The words you knew a moment ago suddenly disappear. You may believe the problem is your English, but often the deeper problem is that your mind is trying to protect you from being embarrassed again. Your brain remembers emotional pain strongly. You may forget many correct sentences you spoke, but remember one mistake for years because that mistake made you feel exposed. Your mind learned, speaking English can be dangerous. Mistakes can make people lose respect for me. Silence is safer than trying. That is why you sometimes know the answer but cannot say it. Your attention is divided. One part of you is trying to communicate, while another part is watching for danger. How do I sound? Are they judging me? What if I make the same mistake again? Should I stop before it becomes worse? The more you watch yourself, the harder speaking becomes. You stop focusing on the message and start focusing on your fear. This is why an old embarrassing memory can still control you even after your English has improved. You may know more words now. Your pronunciation may be clearer. You may understand grammar better. But one real conversation can make you feel like the same beginner you were years ago. Your English changed, but the memory did not. To weaken that memory, your mind needs new evidence. Not evidence that you can speak perfectly. Evidence that you can speak imperfectly and remain safe. You need to make a mistake and see that the conversation continues. You need to pause and discover that the listener is simply waiting. You need to forget a word and find another way to explain it. You need to speak with an accent and realize that your message still matters. Every safe speaking experience teaches your mind. That old moment was not the rule. One embarrassing event does not define every future conversation. You must also change the way you remember the past. Shame usually shows you only the worst part. You remember the mistake but forget the courage it took to speak. You remember the person who laughed but forget the people who understood you. You remember the wrong word but forget the rest of the sentence that was clear. Your memory may be showing you one small piece of the event and calling it the whole truth. Suppose you answered a question and used the wrong tense. You felt embarrassed. Shame says, "I spoke badly in front of everyone." A more honest version says, "I answered in a language I was still learning. I made one mistake. The mistake was corrected. The moment ended." The first version attacks your identity. The second version describes what actually happened. This change is powerful. Turn judgment into fact. Instead of saying, "Everyone thought I was stupid," say, "I made a mistake and felt uncomfortable." Instead of saying, "My pronunciation was terrible," say, "One word was difficult to understand." Instead of saying, "I completely failed," say, "I became nervous and could not express the idea clearly." Facts can teach you. Harsh judgments only make you smaller. Shame also makes you believe you can read other people's minds. Someone looks serious and you think they dislike your English. Someone asks you to repeat and you think they are judging your accent. Someone smiles after your mistake and you think they are laughing at you. Sometimes people are unkind. That can happen. But many times, your interpretation is harsher than the reality. The listener may simply not have heard you. They may be concentrating. They may be thinking about the topic. They may admire the fact that you are speaking another language. They may forget your mistake within seconds while you remember it for months. Do not let shame give every facial expression the worst possible meaning. You do not know what they are thinking. What you do know is this: you are communicating. You are learning. You are allowed to take time. One unclear sentence is not a complete opinion of you. Some learners were genuinely mocked. A classmate copied their accent. A relative laughed at their pronunciation. A fluent speaker made them feel small. A teacher corrected them without kindness. Those experiences hurt because language feels personal, but the person who laughed does not own your voice. Their reaction may reveal their immaturity, impatience, or lack of empathy. It does not reveal your value. Do not allow one careless person to decide whether you will speak for the rest of your life. Every time you remain silent because of that memory, the old moment wins again. Every time you speak despite the memory, you take your voice back. You do not need to forget what happened. You need to stop treating it as a prediction. The past says, "You were embarrassed once." Fear changes it into, "You will be embarrassed every time." That is not true. A painful experience is a memory, not a prophecy. The next conversation is a new event. The next listener is a new person. The next sentence is a new opportunity. You are not entering the same room again. You are not speaking with the same level of English. You are not the same learner anymore. You have grown. Your fear may still sound old, but your ability is new. The only way to prove this to your mind is through experience. Begin with small speaking moments. Ask one question in English. Give one opinion. Tell one short story. Speak to someone you trust. Record your own voice. Do not wait for a perfect conversation. Create safe evidence slowly. After each speaking moment, do not ask, "Was my English perfect?" Ask, "Did I survive being heard? Did my message arrive? Did I continue after a mistake? Was the fear stronger before speaking than after?" These questions help your mind notice progress. Your goal is not to erase nervousness immediately. Your goal is to stop treating nervousness as a command. You may feel afraid and still speak. You may remember the old embarrassment and still continue. You may feel your voice shake and still finish the sentence. That is how the memory loses power. Not because it disappears, but because it stops controlling your behavior. The next time the old scene returns, do not fight it. Say, yes, that happened. Yes, it was painful, but it is not happening now. Then return to the present. Look at the person in front of you. Remember the one message you want to express. Say it with the English you have today. Do not speak to prove that you are perfect. Speak to prove that one old moment no longer decides your future. You are not the mistake they remember. You are the person who kept learning after it. You are not the silence that followed your embarrassment. You are the voice that is returning, and every time you speak again, the memory becomes smaller, while your courage becomes stronger. Chapter 3. Why you sound confident alone, but smaller around people. When you practice English alone, your voice feels different. The words come more easily. You speak louder, you try longer sentences. You make a mistake, correct it, and continue without feeling ashamed. You may even surprise yourself and think, my English is actually getting good. Then another person enters the room. Suddenly, the same English feels weaker. Your voice becomes softer, your thoughts become shorter, simple words disappear. You begin checking every sentence before it leaves your mouth. The confidence you had alone seems to vanish the moment someone starts listening. This can make you question your progress. You may think, why can I speak well alone, but not with people? Why does my English disappear during real conversations? Why do I sound like a different person when someone is listening? The answer is not that your English is fake when you are alone. The difference is pressure. When you practice alone, your attention remains on the message. You think about what you want to say and allow the language to move. There is no face watching you, no reaction to interpret, and no fear that someone will judge the next mistake. Around people, part of your attention leaves the conversation and turns toward yourself. You start watching your pronunciation. You listen to your own grammar. You study the listener's face. You wonder whether your accent sounds strange. You try to predict whether they will understand. Your mind is no longer doing one job. It is trying to speak, judge, protect, and perform at the same time. This is why words that felt available when you were alone suddenly become difficult to retrieve. Your English did not disappear. Your attention became divided. Imagine trying to walk naturally while carefully watching every movement of your legs. The moment you begin controlling each step, walking may start feeling uncomfortable. Speaking works in a similar way. Your speaking system performs best when the main focus is communication. But shame changes the goal. Instead of thinking, I want to share this idea, you begin thinking, I must not look foolish. The conversation becomes a performance. Every sentence feels like evidence. If it sounds good, you feel relief. If it contains a mistake, you feel exposed. This turns normal communication into a test you believe you must pass repeatedly. No learner can speak freely under that kind of pressure. You may begin using short, safe answers. Someone asks, what did you think of the presentation? You have a complete opinion. You notice that the speaker was knowledgeable but poorly organized. You believe the examples were strong, but the conclusion was weak. Yet you say, it was good. That sentence is safe. The grammar is easy. The chance of embarrassment is small. But the real you disappears from the conversation. Someone asks, what do you want to do in the future? You have dreams, plans, fears, and reasons. You say, I want a good job. Again, the answer is safe but much smaller than your real thought. This is how speaking shame reduces your personality. It does not only make you quieter, it makes your English version seem less thoughtful, less humorous, and less confident than the person you truly are. Over time, you may start believing that this smaller version is your real English identity. You say, I am not interesting in English. I cannot express deep ideas. I am always quiet around fluent speakers. But these statements are not descriptions of your personality. They are descriptions of what pressure is doing to your voice. The real question is not, why am I a quiet person in English? The real question is, what am I afraid will happen if I express more? Perhaps you fear that a longer sentence will collapse. Perhaps you fear that someone will interrupt before you finish. Perhaps you fear using the wrong word and changing the meaning. Perhaps you fear that the listener will lose patience. Perhaps you fear that your accent will become more noticeable the longer you speak. Once you understand the fear, you can stop treating silence as part of your identity. You are not silent because you lack thoughts. You are silent because your mind is trying to protect those thoughts from imperfect expression. But protection has a cost. Every time you hide a meaningful idea behind a safe answer, you strengthen the belief that your real thoughts are too dangerous to express in English. The solution is not to force yourself into long, complicated conversations immediately. The solution is to expand your public English gradually. Begin with one sentence more than you usually give. If you normally answer with, "It was good," add, "I liked the main idea because it was practical." If you normally say, "I am tired," add, "I had several tasks today and I did not have enough time to rest." If you normally say, "I agree," add, "I agree because the plan gives people more time to prepare." This may seem small, but it is powerful. You are teaching your mind that being heard for a few extra seconds is safe. You do not need to reveal your entire personality in one conversation. You only need to stop hiding all of it. Another important step is to stop trying to impress the listener. When you believe someone's English is better than yours, you may begin searching for advanced words to prove that you are capable. You avoid simple language because you fear it will make you sound weak. This creates even more pressure. The stronger goal is not, "How can I sound impressive?" It is, "How can I make my meaning clear?" Suppose you want to say that a situation was overwhelming, but the word does not come. You can say, "There were too many things happening at the same time, and I could not think calmly." That is good English. It is clear, human, and complete. Simple English does not hide your intelligence when it expresses a strong idea clearly. Complicated English can hide your intelligence when the listener cannot follow it. Your value in a conversation does not come from using the most advanced vocabulary. It comes from contributing meaning. You should also stop believing that other people expect you to sound like a native speaker. Most reasonable listeners want to understand your message. They are not counting your grammar errors. They are not comparing every sound with perfect pronunciation. They are usually more interested in the topic than in the small language decisions happening inside your mind. You may notice every pause because it feels long to you. To the listener, it may feel completely normal. You may hear your accent as a problem. To the listener, it may simply sound like part of your voice. You may remember one wrong word for the rest of the day. The listener may forget it before the conversation ends. Shame magnifies your mistakes because you are experiencing them from the inside. Other people often experience only the overall message. This does not mean every listener will be patient. Some people interrupt quickly. Some may correct too much. Some may misunderstand you. But their behavior should not become the measurement of your progress. A conversation is not successful only when the other person reacts perfectly. It is successful when you remain present, express what you can, and refuse to disappear because the situation feels uncomfortable. One powerful habit is to look outward instead of inward. When speaking, focus on the listener's message, not their judgment. Ask yourself, what are they really asking? What do I want them to understand? What information would help this conversation? This moves your attention away from performance and back toward communication. Suppose someone asks, "Why are you learning English?" If you look inward, your mind may say, "Do not make a grammar mistake. Choose an advanced word. Speak quickly." If you look outward, your mind asks, "What do I want this person to understand?" Perhaps the answer is, "I am learning English because I want to communicate independently and reach better professional opportunities." Now the sentence has a purpose. You are no longer performing English. You are delivering a message. You can also use a physical reset when shame makes your body smaller. Relax your shoulders, lift your head, take one quiet breath, speak slightly more slowly. Do not force your voice to sound confident, simply allow it to be heard. Many learners whisper because they believe quiet speech will hide mistakes, but speaking too softly can make understanding harder. When the listener asks you to repeat, you may wrongly assume your English was poor, when the real problem was volume. Let your voice occupy enough space to carry the sentence. You do not need to speak loudly. You need to stop disappearing physically while trying to communicate. Your body teaches your mind. When you lower your head, tighten your throat, and rush the sentence, your body sends the message. This is dangerous. When you breathe, face the listener, and speak at a steady pace, your body begins learning. I can remain here. Another helpful practice is to record answers as though you are speaking to a real person. Do not only read scripts aloud. Ask yourself unexpected questions and answer while looking into the camera or mirror. Questions such as, what is something you strongly believe? What was one difficult decision you made? What kind of person do you enjoy talking to? What has English learning changed in your life? When you answer, imagine that another person is listening. Notice when your voice becomes smaller. Notice when you shorten a thought because it feels risky. Then repeat the answer, not to make it perfect, but to allow more of the real meaning to come out. For example, your first answer may be, "I like honest people." Your second answer may be, "I like honest people because I feel comfortable when I do not have to guess what someone truly means." The second sentence reveals more of you. This is how you begin closing the gap between your private English and your public English. You can also practice with trusted people first. Tell them that your goal is not correction during every sentence. Your goal is to speak continuously and finish your thoughts. After the conversation, ask for 1 or 2 useful corrections. Do not allow the entire experience to become a grammar examination. You need speaking spaces where communication remains the main purpose. Every positive conversation adds new evidence. I can be myself in English. I can explain an opinion. I can survive a pause. I can speak longer than 1 sentence. I can continue even when the language is imperfect. Confidence grows from this evidence, not from repeating, "I am confident," not from waiting until all nervousness disappears, from doing the thing your fear said you could not do. There will still be moments when your voice changes around certain people. You may feel comfortable with friends but nervous with authority figures. You may speak well with other learners but freeze around native speakers. You may feel confident online but become quiet face to face. Do not use these differences to attack yourself. They show you where the pressure is strongest. Use smaller steps in those situations. Ask 1 question during a meeting. Share 1 opinion in a group. Speak to a fluent person for 2 minutes instead of avoiding the conversation completely. Order something without rehearsing every word. Make 1 phone call in English. Do not measure success by how relaxed you felt. Measure it by whether you remained present. You may feel nervous and still complete the sentence. That is success. You may make a mistake and still continue. That is success. You may speak softly at first and then find a stronger voice. That is success. Your English does not need to feel the same in every environment immediately. It needs repeated chances to become familiar under observation. The more often you allow people to hear you learning, the less unusual the experience becomes. The listener's presence stops feeling like danger. Your attention slowly returns to the meaning. Your public English begins catching up with your private ability. Remember, the version of you that speaks well alone is real. That person has not disappeared in conversation. They are simply hidden behind too much self-observation. Your task is not to invent a confident English personality. Your task is to remove the fear that keeps your real personality trapped. The next time someone listens, do not ask, "How perfect do I sound?" Ask, "How much of my real meaning am I willing to share?" Give 1 fuller answer. Use 1 sentence you would normally hide. Allow 1 opinion to be heard. You do not need to become the loudest person in the room. You only need to stop becoming smaller because English is present. Your voice may shake. Your vocabulary may remain simple. Your accent may be noticeable, but your thoughts still deserve space. And every time you express one of them without hiding, the distance between who you are inside and who people hear in English becomes smaller. Chapter 4. Stop measuring your intelligence through imperfect English. One of the deepest wounds created by speaking shame is the belief that your English reveals the size of your mind. You know this belief is not completely logical, but it can still feel true in the moment. You enter a conversation with a clear opinion, useful experience, and something meaningful to contribute. Then your English becomes slow. A common word disappears. Your grammar becomes uncertain. You simplify the thought so much that it no longer sounds like the idea inside you. The listener hears a basic sentence, but inside your mind, the thought was never basic. This gap can be painful because you know how capable you are in your own language. You can explain difficult subjects, tell engaging stories, defend your decisions, express humor, and show the full shape of your personality. In English, however, you may sound less knowledgeable, less confident, or less interesting than you truly are. You may leave the conversation thinking, "They probably believe I am not intelligent. I sounded like a child. I could not show them who I really am. My English made me look empty." This is not only frustration with language, it is the pain of being misunderstood as a person. But you must understand something clearly. Your current ability to express intelligence in English is not the same as the intelligence itself. The knowledge is already there. The experience is already there. The personality is already there. English is only the bridge trying to carry those things from your mind to another person. If the bridge is still under construction, that does not mean there is nothing valuable on the other side. A weak bridge does not prove that the city behind it is empty. It only means the bridge needs more development. This distinction can change the way you experience every speaking mistake. Suppose you are discussing business with someone. You understand the problem. You have already considered the risks and can see a better solution. But when it is your turn to speak, you say, "I think this plan is not good because maybe it will make problems later." You immediately feel disappointed. The sentence sounds weak compared with the thought inside you. What you wanted to say was, "I believe this plan may create long-term problems because it focuses on the immediate result without considering the pressure it will place on the team." The second sentence sounds more developed, but the intelligence behind both sentences is the same. Your mind already understood the deeper issue. The only difference was how much of that understanding your English could deliver in that moment. Do not confuse limited delivery with limited thought. A person may possess an important message but struggle to express it because of nervousness, limited vocabulary, lack of speaking practice, or pressure. None of those things removes the value of the message. Imagine a brilliant doctor speaking a language they learned recently. They may know far more about medicine than everyone in the room, but still need time to form an ordinary sentence. Their language level does not reduce their medical knowledge. A skilled engineer may understand a complicated system, but struggle to describe it clearly in English. A thoughtful parent may have years of wisdom, but speak with simple grammar. A talented entrepreneur may see an opportunity before everyone else, but need extra time to explain it. Language performance and intelligence are different abilities. They can support one another, but they should never be treated as the same thing. You may have spent years measuring yourself unfairly. When your English sentence was strong, you felt intelligent. When your sentence broke, you felt foolish. When someone understood you immediately, you felt capable. When they asked you to repeat, you felt embarrassed. When you used an advanced word, you felt proud. When you forgot a simple word, you questioned everything you had learned. This emotional movement is exhausting because your self-respect rises and falls with every sentence. One successful conversation makes you feel that you are finally improving. One difficult conversation makes you feel that you know nothing. Your identity becomes dependent on your performance. But no skill develops in a straight line. Some days your words will come easily. Some days your mind will feel slow. You may speak confidently with one person and freeze with another. You may explain a difficult idea clearly and then forget a basic word 5 minutes later. These changes are normal. They do not mean your intelligence is appearing and disappearing. They mean your speaking system is affected by energy, familiarity, pressure, subject knowledge, emotional state, and the person in front of you. Your real ability is larger than one moment. You must stop using your worst speaking moment as the final measurement of your mind. Think about how unfair that measurement is. You would never judge another person's intelligence only by their ability to speak your language perfectly. If someone came from another country and spoke with broken sentences, you would probably understand that they were learning. You would not assume they had no knowledge, no humor, no experience, and no depth. You would separate the person from the language difficulty. You deserve the same fairness from yourself. When you struggle, do not look at yourself through the eyes of the harshest possible listener. Look at yourself as a learner performing a demanding task. You are taking meaning formed in one language system and rebuilding it through another. You are choosing words, organizing grammar, controlling pronunciation, watching the listener, and responding in real time. This is not evidence of weakness, it is evidence of mental effort. Even a simple English conversation may require a level of concentration that the listener cannot see. You may appear slow because your mind is performing several jobs at once. You are not empty, you are overloaded. This is why shame often becomes stronger around intelligent or fluent people. You want them to recognize your real ability. You want to sound clear, informed, and confident. Because the opinion matters, you place more pressure on yourself. That pressure makes speaking harder, and the difficult sentence then seems to confirm your fear. You think, "I wanted to sound intelligent, but I sounded worse." The truth is that your effort to protect your image may have interfered with your ability to communicate naturally. When you enter a conversation trying to prove your intelligence, every word becomes dangerous. A simple expression feels too weak. A pause feels embarrassing. A mistake feels unacceptable. You begin rejecting the English that is available because it does not seem impressive enough. You search for a more advanced word. You attempt a longer structure. You mentally edit the sentence before speaking. Meanwhile, the conversation continues, and your chance to contribute becomes smaller. You may finally remain silent. The desire to appear intelligent prevents your intelligence from being heard at all. This is one of the great ironies of speaking shame. You hide your real ideas because you are afraid simple English will not represent them perfectly. But an imperfectly expressed idea still has a chance to reach someone. A silent idea has no chance. The listener cannot value a thought they never receive. Your first responsibility is not to sound impressive. It is to make the central meaning visible. Suppose you want to explain that a company's new policy may reduce employee motivation. You cannot remember words such as productivity, morale, or long-term consequences. You could remain silent because the perfect explanation is unavailable. Or you could say, I think this rule may make people work with less energy because they will feel that the company does not trust them. That sentence is simple, but the idea is not simple. You have expressed cause, emotion, and possible effect. The listener can now respond. You can add another thought. When people feel controlled all the time, they may complete the work, but they will stop giving their best ideas. Again, the grammar is manageable, but the meaning is thoughtful. Intelligence is not shown only through difficult vocabulary. It is shown through observation, connection, reasoning, and clarity. A person who can explain a deep idea in simple language often communicates more effectively than someone who hides a weak idea behind complicated words. Do not treat simplicity as humiliation. Treat it as a bridge. Simple English can carry complex thinking when you choose the right meaning. The sentence does not need to contain every detail of your mind immediately. It only needs to open the door. Once the first meaning lands, you can add another sentence, then another. Your full intelligence can appear through a sequence of clear thoughts rather than one perfect performance. You may say, I disagree with this decision. Then, it solves the problem for today, but it may create a larger problem next month. Then, the team is already tired, and this plan asks them to do more without giving them more time. Then, I think a better solution would be to reduce unnecessary work before increasing expectations. Nothing about this answer is childish. The words are accessible, but the reasoning is mature. This is the kind of English you should trust. Your real goal is not to translate every complicated thought into one equally complicated sentence. Your goal is to preserve the intelligence of the meaning. Sometimes that requires shorter sentences. Sometimes it requires an example. Sometimes it requires description instead of one exact word. Sometimes it requires saying, I cannot express this perfectly, but the main point is, that phrase does not make you weak. It shows that you know the thought is larger than the language currently available. Then you can continue. The main point is that the decision may look successful now, but its hidden cost will appear later. The listener receives the heart of your idea. Do not allow one missing word to convince you that your whole mind is missing. Another painful habit is comparing your spoken English with another person's fluent performance. You hear someone answer quickly, use natural expressions, and speak without visible effort. Then you compare their external performance with your internal struggle. You think, they are intelligent and confident. I am slow and confused, but you do not know their full history. They may have used English every day for years. They may have grown up around the language. They may have practiced that topic many times. They may feel nervous in another situation that appears easy to you. You are comparing your current stage with the visible result of someone else's experience. More importantly, speaking speed is not a complete measure of thought quality. A person can speak quickly and say very little. Another person can pause, choose simple words, and express something meaningful. Do not worship speed. Do not assume that fast English automatically means a stronger mind. Fluency makes expression easier, but it does not create wisdom by itself. Your goal is to develop fluency, so your existing intelligence can move more freely, not to believe that fluency will finally make you intelligent. You are not waiting to become valuable. You are learning how to reveal value that already exists. This mindset changes practice. Instead of asking, how can I sound smarter? Ask, how can I express this idea more clearly? Instead of, what advanced vocabulary should I use? Ask, what does the listener need to understand? Instead of, how can I hide my mistakes? Ask, how can I keep the message moving? These questions reduce shame because they move your attention away from self-protection and toward communication. Imagine someone asks, what do you think makes a strong relationship? You may have a deep answer, but the words do not come quickly. You could say, a strong relationship needs trust. That is a clear beginning. Then add, for me, trust means that you do not have to keep wondering whether the other person is honest. Then, it also means you can speak about difficult things without feeling that the relationship will break immediately. Then, love may bring people together, but trust helps them remain safe with each other. The language remains understandable, but your personality and reflection become visible. You do not need one advanced sentence to prove depth. You need enough courage to continue developing the thought. Another way shame attacks intelligence is through pronunciation. You may know exactly what a word means and use it correctly, but pronounce it differently from the listener's expectation. When they ask you to repeat, you may feel as if your knowledge has been rejected. But pronunciation is the physical delivery of language. It is not proof of whether you understand the concept. You may know a word deeply and still need more practice producing its sounds. A person can know how to spell, define, and use a word while pronouncing it imperfectly because their mouth is still learning a new sound pattern. Do not turn a sound problem into an identity problem. If the listener does not understand, repeat more slowly. Use the word in a sentence. Replace it with another expression. Write it down when necessary. Communication has many roads. You are not required to feel ashamed because one sound did not arrive clearly. Your accent also does not cancel intelligence. An accent reveals language history. It shows that your mouth first learned another sound system. It may change with practice, but it does not need to disappear before your ideas deserve attention. Many learners secretly believe that their thoughts will be respected only if they sound native. That belief can keep them trapped for years. Clear pronunciation is useful. It improves understanding and confidence. Continue working on it. But do not confuse clarity with imitation. You do not need to erase every trace of your first language to become a powerful English speaker. The listener needs to understand you. They do not need you to become someone else. Your goal is a clear voice, not a borrowed identity. Some learners become especially ashamed when they make basic mistakes after years of study. They think, I should not make this mistake anymore. I have been learning for too long. People will think I learned nothing. This expectation creates even more shame because the learner believes progress should eliminate all simple errors. But pressure can make even familiar knowledge temporarily unavailable. You may know the correct tense and still use the wrong one while speaking quickly. You may know a common word and still forget it. You may understand a grammar rule and fail to apply it in real time. Knowledge and automatic use are different stages. A mistake does not prove the knowledge was never there. It may show that the knowledge has not become stable under pressure. That is a practice problem, not an intelligence problem. Treat it practically. If you repeatedly make the same error, practice that pattern. Create examples. Use it aloud. Notice it during conversations. But do not attach shame to the repair. You can say, I keep using this tense incorrectly when I speak. I need more repetition. That statement creates a solution. Do not say, I am stupid because I still make this mistake. That statement creates paralysis. Shame attacks the person. Learning examines the skill. Always move from personal judgment toward specific improvement. Not, my English is terrible, but I need more practice explaining reasons. Not, I sound stupid, but I am using sentences that are too short to show my full meaning. Not, I cannot speak, but I can speak more comfortably alone than under observation. Not, I know nothing, but my vocabulary is still more passive than active. Specific language gives you power because it identifies something you can practice. Global shame tells you that the whole person is the problem. The whole person is not the problem. A specific ability needs development. You may need faster word retrieval. You may need more speaking experience. You may need pronunciation practice. You may need to become comfortable pausing. You may need to organize ideas into shorter sentences. You may need to stop monitoring every word. These are trainable problems. None of them proves a limited mind. You should also notice how you speak to yourself after conversations. Perhaps the conversation went reasonably well. You expressed most of the message, answered questions, and remained present. But afterward, your mind chooses one mistake and repeats it. You used the wrong word. You paused too long. You sounded nervous. You forgot an easy expression. The entire successful conversation becomes invisible. This kind of review does not improve English. It trains shame. A useful review is balanced. Ask, what meaning did I communicate successfully? Where did I remain calm? Which sentence expressed my real opinion? Where did the listener understand me? What one thing should I practice next? You are not ignoring mistakes. You are placing them inside the complete experience. Suppose you spoke for 5 minutes and made several errors. Shame says, I embarrassed myself. A fair review says, I maintained a 5-minute conversation, explained 2 ideas clearly, and struggled when describing the final example. I need to practice that vocabulary. The second review protects confidence while guiding improvement. Confidence and correction can exist together. You do not need to hate your performance in order to learn from it. In fact, shame often makes learning less effective because the emotional pain becomes stronger than the useful information. You remember that the moment felt bad, but not what you should practice. Calm observation is more educational. After a difficult conversation, write down the message you wanted to express. Then rebuild it using the English you know. Do not search immediately for the most advanced version. Create a clear version first. For example, perhaps you wanted to say, "I felt excluded because important decisions were made without asking for my opinion, even though I was responsible for part of the project." During the conversation, you only said, "They did not tell me, and I felt bad." Do not insult yourself. Expand the thought in practice. "I felt excluded because the team made important decisions without including me. This was especially frustrating because I was responsible for part of the project." Now say it aloud several times. You are helping your English catch up with your mind. The difficult conversation revealed a gap. Practice can close it. This is the healthy relationship between intelligence and language learning. Your mind creates meaning. Practice builds the pathway through which that meaning can travel. Every time you express an idea more clearly, the bridge becomes stronger. Do not expect the bridge to carry everything perfectly before it is fully built. You should also give yourself permission to reveal intelligence slowly. Some learners feel pressure to show everything immediately. They meet someone intelligent or important and believe the first conversation must prove their full ability. That is impossible, even in your first language. Human depth is not revealed in one sentence. People understand you over time through your questions, decisions, observations, actions, and repeated conversations. One imperfect meeting cannot define how someone will see you forever. You may not express your best thought today. You may explain it more clearly tomorrow. You may need several conversations before your personality becomes visible. That is normal. Stop treating every interaction as your only chance to prove yourself. A conversation is not a final judgment, it is one moment in a longer process. When you remove that pressure, your English often becomes more natural because you are no longer trying to display your entire mind at once. You can simply contribute one useful thought, ask one thoughtful question, share one relevant example, offer one clear opinion. Let the relationship develop. Your intelligence does not need to enter the room through a dramatic speech. It can appear quietly through consistent meaning. Another powerful practice is learning to say what you know without apologizing for how you say it. Do not begin, "My English is not good, but..." That phrase weakens your voice before the idea begins. Say, "I think the main issue is..." Then deliver the idea. Do not say, "I do not know if this makes sense." Say, "The way I see it," then explain. Do not say, "Maybe I am wrong because my English is weak." Say, "I may be missing some information, but my current view is..." This language separates uncertainty about the subject from shame about English. You are allowed to express an opinion without presenting yourself as inferior. You can remain humble without making yourself small. There is a difference between saying, "I may be wrong," and "I am probably wrong because I cannot speak English well." The first shows openness. The second attacks your credibility before the listener has considered the idea. Stop teaching people to underestimate you. Let them hear the message first. Your English may contain mistakes, but your thought may still be valuable. Trust the listener enough to evaluate the idea. You should also recognize that intelligence is often visible through listening, not only speaking. When shame tells you that you must perform perfectly, you may become so focused on your next sentence that you stop hearing the other person. But thoughtful communication involves understanding, asking useful questions, and responding to what was actually said. You can show depth by saying, "So your main concern is not the cost itself, but the risk of spending money without a clear result. Is that correct?" This may be a simple sentence, but it demonstrates careful listening. You can say, "I understand your point, but I think there is another side we should consider." Again, clear and thoughtful. You can ask, "What do you think will happen if this problem continues for another year?" A strong question can reveal intelligence more clearly than an advanced speech. Do not believe your value depends only on producing long answers. Your attention, curiosity, reasoning, and emotional understanding are also part of communication. Use all of them. When you do not know the exact word, describe the idea. When you need time, pause. When the listener does not understand, rephrase. When the sentence becomes too complex, divide it. These actions do not reveal weakness, they reveal control. A learner who calmly adapts is often more effective than one who tries to sound perfect and collapses. You may say, I cannot remember the exact word, but I mean a situation where one person receives better treatment than another without a fair reason. The listener may provide the word discrimination or favoritism, depending on the meaning. You have not lost intelligence. You demonstrated it by defining the concept. You may say, "Let me divide this into 2 points, then explain 1 point at a time." That shows organization. You may say, "I do not think my first sentence explained it clearly." The simpler point is, that shows awareness and flexibility. Strong communication is not the absence of difficulty. It is the ability to guide meaning through difficulty. Remember that many people you admire in English once sounded uncertain. They paused, they translated, they mispronounced words, they created basic sentences, they sometimes felt embarrassed. The difference is not that they were born without shame. The difference is that they continued using the language long enough for expression to become stronger. They did not wait for English to prove their intelligence. They allowed their intelligence to keep pushing English forward. You must do the same. Your speaking ability will grow because your thoughts keep demanding more room. Every time you notice that your English version is smaller than your real meaning, do not feel humiliated. Treat that gap as a direction for growth. Ask, what was I truly trying to say? How can I divide it into clear sentences? What vocabulary would help next time? What example could make the idea easier to explain? How can I practice this thought aloud? This turns frustration into development. The gap becomes useful information. Perhaps you repeatedly struggle to express disagreement respectfully. Practice structures such as, "I understand the reason behind the decision, but I am concerned about. I agree with the goal, although I think the current method may. My experience suggests a different approach because." Now your intelligence has stronger language tools. Perhaps you struggle to explain emotions. Practice, "I was not only angry, I felt disappointed because." The most difficult part was, "What affected me deeply was." Perhaps you struggle to explain causes and effects. Practice, "This happened because." As a result, the short-term benefit may create a long-term problem because. Build the language your thoughts need. Do not merely collect random vocabulary. Identify the meanings you frequently want to express and create reliable pathways for them. Your English should grow around your real life, your work, your beliefs, your experiences, and your personality. This is how your public voice becomes more authentic. You are not trying to sound like a textbook. You are building the ability to sound like yourself. There may still be listeners who judge your accent or grammar unfairly. You cannot control every person. Some people confuse fluency with intelligence because they have never experienced the difficulty of speaking another language. Their misunderstanding does not need to become your truth. A person who judges your mind through one imperfect sentence is using a poor measurement. You do not need to accept that measurement. You can continue improving without believing you are inferior. You can value clear communication without worshiping perfect English. You can receive correction without surrendering self-respect. You can admit that your speaking needs work while remaining certain that your mind has value. These ideas can exist together. Say to yourself, "My English is still developing and my ideas still matter. I may need more time and I still deserve to finish. I may use simple words and the meaning can still be powerful. I may have an accent and my voice can still be clear. I may make mistakes and I am still intelligent." These are not empty motivational statements. They are accurate. You are separating the learner from the learning difficulty. The next time you enter a conversation, do not try to prove the full size of your mind. Choose one real thought. Hold it clearly. Express it with the language available. If the sentence is simple, let it be simple. If you need another sentence, add one. If a word disappears, explain around it. If the listener asks you to repeat, repeat without shame. If your first attempt is unclear, rephrase. Your intelligence is not defeated because the first sentence was imperfect. The real defeat happens when shame prevents the idea from leaving you at all. Do not allow that. The world has already heard enough polished sentences without meaning. It also needs honest thoughts spoken by people still finding the language to carry them. Your voice does not become valuable only after fluency. It is valuable now. Fluency will help it travel farther, but the message already matters. So stop using one pause as proof that you are slow. Stop using one grammar mistake as proof that you are incapable. Stop using one short answer as proof that your thoughts are small. Stop comparing the language you are building with the mind you have spent a lifetime developing. They are moving at different speeds, that is all. Your mind may already be standing at the destination while your English is still learning the road. Be patient with the road. Strengthen it, use it, repair it after every difficult journey, but never mistake the condition of the road for the value of what it carries. You are not less intelligent in English. You are learning how to make your intelligence visible through English. That process takes time, courage, repetition, and many imperfect sentences. Let those sentences come. Let them be simple at first. Let them become clearer through use. Because every time you speak without measuring your worth through the result, the shame barrier becomes weaker. And every time you allow one true thought to reach another person, your English begins sounding less like a frightened performance and more like the real voice that has been waiting behind it. Chapter 5. Break the habit of hiding behind safe English. Many English learners do not remain silent because they have no language. They remain silent because they have learned how to hide inside the safest version of their English. They know more than they say. They understand more than they reveal. They have opinions, memories, humor, questions, and personal experiences. But when another person is listening, all of that meaning is reduced into a few small sentences that feel difficult to get wrong. Someone asks, "How was your weekend?" You had a meaningful weekend. You visited someone important, had a difficult conversation, made a decision, or experienced something that changed your mood. But instead of sharing any of that, you say, "It was good." Someone asks what you think about a new plan at work. You can see both its advantages and its hidden risks, but you say, "I think it is okay." Someone asks why you are learning English. Your real answer includes independence, career opportunities, confidence, travel, identity, and the desire to express yourself without needing another person's help. But you say, "English is important for my future." None of these answers is wrong. The grammar is clear, the vocabulary is safe, and the listener can understand you. The problem is that the sentence protects you by hiding most of who you are. Safe English is not always simple English. Simple English can be clear, thoughtful, and powerful. Safe English is language you choose mainly because it reduces the possibility of embarrassment. It is the answer you give when your real thought feels too risky. It is the sentence you use when you want the conversation to move away from you quickly. It is the small public version of a much larger private meaning. You may not notice that you are doing this because the habit can feel responsible. You tell yourself that you are being careful, avoiding mistakes, or using the English appropriate for your level. But beneath that carefulness, there may be a deeper belief. The less I say, the less they can judge. A short answer gives shame less material to attack. If you say only, "It was nice," there is almost no grammar to lose control of. If you say only, "I agree," there is no complicated explanation to complete. If you say only, "I do not know," you escape the risk of searching for words while someone waits. This protection feels useful in the moment, but it creates a serious long-term problem. The English you refuse to use cannot become stronger. The thoughts you repeatedly shorten never develop speaking pathways. The vocabulary you keep protecting inside your mind remains passive. The fear you avoid never receives evidence that you can survive a longer answer. You become trapped in a painful cycle. Shame makes you use safe English. Safe English prevents growth. Slow growth makes you feel even more ashamed. Then you hide more. Breaking this cycle does not require you to start using complicated vocabulary or speaking for 10 minutes at a time. It requires you to stop allowing fear to decide the size of every answer. The first step is learning to recognize when your answer is complete and when it is only protected. Suppose someone asks, "Do you enjoy your job?" You say, "Yes, I enjoy it." That may be a complete answer if you truly have nothing else to add or the situation requires brevity. But if your mind is full of reasons and experiences while your mouth chooses the smallest possible sentence because you are afraid, then the answer is protected. The difference is not always visible to the listener. It is visible to you. You know when you have finished because the meaning is complete. You also know when you have escaped. After a protected answer, you often feel unfinished. The conversation moves on, but your real response continues inside your head. You imagine the sentences you could have used. You think, "I should have told them why." You replay the moment and hear a stronger version of yourself speaking after it is too late. This regret is important. It shows that your silence did not come from emptiness, it came from fear. Instead of judging yourself, use that regret as information. Ask, "What was the next sentence I was afraid to say?" Perhaps it was, "Yes, I enjoy my job because I solve a different problem every day." Perhaps it was, "I enjoy some parts of it, but the pressure has become difficult to manage." Perhaps it was, "I like the work, although I do not feel that the company gives people enough room to grow." The goal is not to create the most advanced response. The goal is to reveal one more layer of the real answer. This is one of the strongest practices for breaking safe English. Add one honest sentence beyond the place where fear wants you to stop. If you usually say, "It was good," add, "I especially enjoyed having time away from work." If you usually say, "I agree," add, "I agree because the current plan gives everyone more time to prepare." If you usually say, "I am tired," add, "I had to solve several problems today, so my mind has not had a chance to rest." If you usually say, "I do not like it," add, "I do not like it because the decision feels rushed and may create more confusion later." That one extra sentence is not small. It is a direct challenge to the shame barrier. It teaches your mind that you can stay visible slightly longer without being destroyed. You may make a mistake in that extra sentence. That is acceptable. The purpose is not to prove perfection. The purpose is to stop hiding. Many learners wait until they have enough vocabulary to express everything beautifully. They believe they will speak more openly when their grammar becomes stronger, their pronunciation improves, and their word retrieval becomes faster. But open speaking does not usually begin after perfect preparation. It develops through imperfect use. If you keep saving your real thoughts for a future version of yourself, your public English may remain permanently smaller than your private ability. Your thoughts do not need to be expressed in their most beautiful form before they are allowed to exist in a conversation. Suppose you want to explain that you feel emotionally exhausted because you are always trying to meet other people's expectations. You may not know the words emotionally exhausted, expectations, or approval. Safe English says, "I am tired." That sentence is true, but it does not carry the full meaning. A more honest, simple version could be, "I feel tired because I am always trying to make everyone happy, and I do not have enough time to think about what I need." The vocabulary is not highly advanced, but the thought is real. The listener can now understand you more deeply. This is what you must learn. Simple English can be emotionally brave. You do not need advanced grammar to reveal a difficult truth. You need the willingness to remain with the meaning. Many learners hide behind basic adjectives because those words are easy to retrieve. Everything becomes good, bad, nice, difficult, or interesting. The movie was good. The situation was bad. The person was nice. The experience was difficult. These sentences are not wrong, but if you stop there every time, your English cannot carry the detail of your life. Do not immediately search for a more advanced adjective. Add an explanation. The movie was good because it made me understand the character's pain. The situation was bad because nobody knew who was responsible for solving the problem. The person was nice because she noticed that I was nervous and made the conversation easier. The experience was difficult because I had to make an important decision without anyone's support. The explanation gives the word meaning. This method is powerful because you are not waiting for a perfect label. You are showing what the label means to you. You may forget disappointed, but you can say, "I expected something better, so the result hurt me." You may forget isolated, but you can say, "I was surrounded by people, but I still felt completely alone." You may forget overwhelmed, but you can say, "There were too many things happening at the same time, and I could not think clearly." You may forget unappreciated, but you can say, "I kept giving my time and effort, but nobody seemed to notice or value it." This is not weak English, it is meaningful English. Safe English often appears when a learner believes every longer answer must be grammatically complex. They imagine that expressing more requires one enormous sentence filled with difficult connectors. Because that sentence feels dangerous, they return to a short answer. But you do not need one long sentence to express a large thought. You need several complete, manageable sentences. Suppose someone asks, "Why did you leave your previous job?" You may think of a complicated answer. "I left because although the company was good and the people were friendly, there were many problems with management and no opportunity for growth. And also the work was affecting my health because this structure feels risky." So you say, "I wanted a better opportunity." Instead, divide the real answer. "I left because I had stopped growing in that position. I had been doing the same work for several years, but there was no clear path forward. The pressure was also affecting my health. When another company offered me more responsibility, I decided it was time to move." Every sentence is manageable. Together, they reveal the full meaning. You do not need to become more complicated. You need to become less hidden. This difference matters because some learners respond to shame by forcing themselves to sound advanced. They believe that if safe English is the problem, they must immediately use difficult vocabulary, long structures, and formal expressions. That can create another kind of hiding. You are no longer hiding behind short English. You are hiding behind impressive English. You choose words that do not feel natural because you want the listener to respect you. You build sentences that are more complicated than the thought requires. You focus so much on sounding intelligent that your real personality disappears under performance. Breaking the shame barrier does not mean replacing one mask with another. It means allowing your real meaning to come through the English you can control today. Your voice should not sound like a textbook unless you are reading one. It should slowly begin sounding like you. Perhaps your personality is warm and humorous, but your English answers are serious because jokes feel risky. Perhaps you are thoughtful, but your English sounds shallow because you avoid explaining your ideas. Perhaps you are direct, but you become overly polite and uncertain because you are afraid of sounding wrong. Perhaps you are emotionally expressive, but in English you use flat language because feelings require vocabulary you do not fully trust. The goal is not to change your personality to fit your English level. The goal is to expand your English until more of your personality can travel through it. You can begin by identifying the parts of yourself that disappear most often. Do you hide your opinions? Do you hide your humor? Do you hide disagreement? Do you hide emotion? Do you hide questions because you fear they will sound simple? Do you hide stories because you fear losing the sequence? Do you hide knowledge because you cannot explain it as clearly as you would like? Choose one area at a time. If you hide opinions, practice giving one clear position and one reason. I think the new policy will create more problems because it adds responsibility without giving people more time. If you hide humor, practice simple, playful responses with people you trust. Do not try to create complicated jokes. Allow yourself to react naturally. If you hide disagreement, practice respectful structures. I understand your point, but I see the situation differently. I agree with the goal, although I am not sure the current method will work. My experience has been different because, if you hide emotions, practice explaining what caused the feeling. I felt disappointed because I had trusted that the promise would be kept. I felt proud because I completed something I had been avoiding for a long time. I felt uncomfortable because the conversation became very personal. The language becomes more useful when it grows around the parts of you that need expression. One of the greatest dangers of safe English is that it can create a false public identity. People may think you are uninterested because your answers are short. They may think you have no opinion because you always say, maybe, or I do not know. They may think you are distant because you rarely share personal details. They may think you lack confidence because your voice becomes quiet and your sentences disappear quickly. You know those impressions are incomplete, but other people can only respond to the version of you they can hear. This can become especially painful in professional situations. You may have strong knowledge but remain silent during meetings. You may notice a problem but avoid explaining it because the language feels risky. You may have a good solution but allow someone else to speak first. You may accept decisions you disagree with because defending your position requires longer English. Later you feel invisible. You think, they do not recognize what I can do. But sometimes, people cannot recognize what you continue hiding. This does not mean you should blame yourself for every missed opportunity. Speaking in another language under pressure is genuinely difficult. But you must become honest about the cost of protection. Safe English may protect you from one awkward sentence. It may also cost you recognition, connection, influence, and growth. The choice is not between embarrassment and perfect safety. Silence also has consequences. Every time you avoid speaking, you may feel temporary relief. Your heart slows down. The dangerous moment passes. But later, relief often turns into frustration. You think, I should have said something. I knew the answer. My idea was useful. I let fear make the decision again. This is why courage must become more important than immediate comfort. Comfort says, stay quiet so nothing goes wrong. Courage says, say the main idea even if it does not come out perfectly. The goal is not to eliminate discomfort before acting. It is to stop allowing discomfort to control the action. You can begin with a simple rule in meetings, classes, or group conversations. Contribute one meaningful sentence before the moment ends. You do not need to give a speech. You might say, I think the main issue is that the deadline does not match the amount of work. Or, I have one concern about how this decision will affect the team. Or, I agree with the first point, but I think we should consider the long-term cost. Or, can you explain what success would look like after 3 months? One sentence places your mind inside the room. Once you speak, a second sentence may become easier. Even when the contribution is small, you are building a new identity, someone who allows their English voice to participate. Safe English also appears in social conversations, but the cost is different. Instead of losing influence, you may lose connection. Friendship grows through small revelations. People connect when they hear what you enjoy, what you fear, what you remember, and how you see the world. If every answer remains protected, the conversation may never move beyond the surface. Someone asks, "How are you?" You say, "Fine." Someone asks, "What have you been doing?" You say, "Nothing much." Someone asks, "What do you think?" You say, "I do not know." The other person may stop asking because they assume you do not want to share. Inside, you may want connection deeply, but shame keeps giving answers that close the door. You do not need to reveal private information to everyone. Boundaries are important. But when you want connection, give the conversation something real to hold. Instead of "I am fine," you might say, "I am doing better today. The last few days were stressful, but I finally solved one of the problems that was worrying me." Instead of "Nothing much," you might say, "I have been working on improving my English speaking because I want to feel more confident in conversations." Instead of "I do not know," you might say, "I have not decided completely, but I am leaning toward the second option because it feels more practical." These responses invite the other person into your thought. A conversation becomes alive when people can respond to meaning. Another reason learners hide behind Safe English is fear of follow-up questions. You may know how to give one prepared answer, but worry that the listener will ask something unexpected. To prevent that, you make your response as small as possible. Someone asks about your job. You say, "I work in marketing." You could explain more, but you worry they will ask about your responsibilities, your company, or your opinion of the industry. You fear that a longer answer will open a conversation you cannot control. This fear is understandable, but it keeps you from developing the exact skill you need: flexible response. You do not need to know every future question. You need a few recovery tools. When the listener asks something difficult, you can pause and say, "That is a good question. Let me think for a moment." You can clarify, "Do you mean what I do every day or what my main responsibility is?" You can simplify. The easiest way to explain it is, you can admit limits without shame. "I do not know enough about that part to give a strong answer." You can redirect toward what you know. "I am not responsible for the financial side, but I can explain how the marketing process works." You do not need total control of the conversation to participate in it. Follow-up questions are not traps. They are evidence that the listener is interested in what you said. When shame interprets every question as a test, you become afraid of curiosity itself. Change the meaning. A follow-up question can mean, "They are listening. They want to understand. My first answer gave them something worth exploring." Even when you struggle with the answer, the conversation is giving you practice with real thinking. Another hidden form of Safe English is excessive agreement. You may say yes because disagreement requires more language. You may accept someone's opinion because explaining your own position feels risky. You may laugh at something you did not understand because asking for clarification feels embarrassing. You may pretend to know what a person means because admitting confusion feels shameful. This can create serious problems. You may agree to a plan you do not understand. You may accept work you cannot complete. You may remain silent when someone crosses a boundary. You may allow incorrect assumptions about you to continue. Your English confidence is not only about speaking more, it is also about protecting your meaning, needs, and decisions. Learn to use clear disagreement without making the language complicated. "I do not agree with that. I understand your reason, but I am not comfortable with the decision. I need more information before I can agree. That will not be possible for me. I think there may be another way to handle this." These sentences are direct, useful, and safe enough to practice, but they do not hide your real position. You should also practice clarification. "Could you explain what you mean by that? I understood the first part, but I missed the final point. Are you saying that the deadline has changed? I am not familiar with that expression. What does it mean here?" Asking for clarification does not make you unintelligent. Pretending to understand may create much larger problems. A strong speaker is not someone who understands everything immediately. A strong speaker knows how to protect accuracy in communication. Safe English often becomes strongest when the topic is emotional. You may speak comfortably about food, weather, and daily routines, but become silent when discussing disappointment, conflict, ambition, love, failure, jealousy, grief, or fear. These topics are difficult because even in your first language, they require courage. English adds another layer of vulnerability. You may worry that simple words will make the emotion sound childish. You may fear that the listener will misunderstand your intention. You may not know how to explain the difference between anger and disappointment, loneliness and rejection, worry and fear, so you say, "I feel bad." The sentence is safe but emotionally incomplete. Begin with cause and effect. I felt hurt because I trusted that person and did not expect them to treat me that way. I was not only angry, I was disappointed because we had already discussed the problem several times. I felt lonely because I had people around me, but I did not feel understood. I am worried because the decision affects my family, and I do not have enough information yet. You may not use the most exact emotional vocabulary, but the listener can understand the experience. This practice also teaches you the words you truly need. Vocabulary becomes easier to remember when it is connected to your life. If you repeatedly need to explain disappointment, practice words and structures around disappointment. If you need to discuss boundaries, learn phrases for saying no respectfully. If you need to explain workplace problems, build vocabulary for responsibility, deadlines, support, expectations, and pressure. Do not expand your vocabulary randomly while your real thoughts remain unsupported. Build language around the meanings you keep hiding. You can create a personal speaking bank. Write down 10 situations where you usually become smaller in English. Perhaps explaining your work, giving an opinion in a meeting, talking about a difficult experience, disagreeing with someone, describing your personality, answering questions about your future, telling a story, asking for help, setting a boundary, expressing emotion. For each situation, write 3 simple but honest sentences you could use. For explaining work, I create content that helps people understand complicated ideas more easily. My main responsibility is planning topics and organizing the final message. The most difficult part is maintaining quality while working under time pressure. For disagreement, I understand your point, but I think the plan may create another problem. I agree with the goal, although I would prefer a different method. My concern is that we are moving too quickly without enough information. For emotion, I felt disappointed because I had expected more honesty. I became nervous because everyone was waiting for my answer. I felt proud because I completed the task without asking someone else to do it for me. You are not memorizing a complete personality. You are building reliable doors through which your personality can enter. When the situation arrives, you will have language that feels familiar enough to use. Another powerful exercise is answer expansion. Choose an ordinary question. What did you do yesterday? Give the safest answer. I stayed at home. Now expand one level. I stayed at home because I needed to finish some work. Expand again. I stayed at home because I needed to finish some work that had been delayed all week. Expand again. I was tired by the evening, but I felt relieved because I finally completed it. Now the answer contains event, reason, time, feeling, and result. You did not create one long sentence. You built layers. Try. What do you like about your city? Safe answer, it is beautiful. Expand, it is beautiful because the mountains are close and the air feels peaceful. Expand, I also like that people know one another, so the community feels warm. Expand, the only difficulty is that there are fewer professional opportunities than in larger cities. You now sound more like a real person with a balanced opinion. Try. What is one goal you have? Safe answer, I want to improve my English. Expand, I want to improve my English because I am tired of shortening my ideas during conversations. Expand, I want to speak with enough control that people can hear my real personality, not only the safest sentences I can produce. Expand, for me, fluency means freedom to express what I truly think without becoming ashamed of every mistake. This answer reveals identity. You can practice expansion with a timer. Give yourself 20 seconds to answer one question, then answer the same question for 40 seconds. Then answer for 1 minute. Do not fill time with repetition. Add new meaning. First state the answer, then explain why. Then give an example. Then explain the result or lesson. This structure helps you speak longer without becoming lost. You may notice that shame appears after the first sentence. Your voice says, "Stop now, that was enough. Continue with one more thought." This is the exact moment where growth happens. You are not only practicing English, you are practicing visibility. Another important habit is allowing yourself to pause without ending the answer. Safe English often appears because learners fear silence. They believe that if they cannot continue immediately, they should finish the response. You say, "I think the main problem is," a word does not come. You panic and say, "I do not know." The answer dies. Instead, keep ownership of the conversation. Pause, say, the main problem is, let me think for a moment, the lack of clear communication between the teams. The pause did not destroy the answer, or, I enjoyed the experience because. The best way to explain it is that I felt more independent afterward. You are allowed to think while speaking. A pause can be part of an honest answer. Do not interpret every silent second as failure. The listener may be waiting calmly while your mind imagines disaster. Maintain eye contact when comfortable, breathe and continue. You can use natural bridge phrases. What I am trying to say is, the main reason is. One example would be, the difficult part was, what affected me most was. The simplest way to explain it is. These phrases should not become empty fillers. Use them to bring the next piece of meaning forward. Another reason safe English continues is that learners punish themselves after attempting more. You give a longer answer, make 2 mistakes, and later think, I should have stayed quiet. This teaches the nervous system that visibility creates pain. You must review brave attempts differently. After speaking more, ask, what did I reveal that I normally hide? Which idea reached the listener? Where did I continue despite uncertainty? What mistake gave me useful information? What sentence can I improve for next time? Suppose you tried to explain why you disagreed with a decision. Your grammar was imperfect, but the listener understood your concern. Shame says, you sounded foolish. A useful review says, I expressed a difficult opinion instead of remaining silent. My reason was clear, but I need to practice the vocabulary for long-term consequences. The second interpretation creates progress. Do not demand flawless performance from your first act of courage. A person learning to swim should not be ashamed because the first movements are not elegant. Entering the water is already part of the learning. Speaking beyond safe English will feel unstable at first because you are using language at the edge of your comfort. That instability is not proof that you should return to hiding. It is evidence that you are finally practicing something new. You may also need to change the people with whom you practice. Some environments make growth easier. A patient listener gives you time, asks meaningful questions, and does not correct every small mistake. An impatient listener interrupts, completes your sentences, laughs, or turns every conversation into a lesson. You cannot always choose the people around you, but when possible, create at least one safe space where you can practice fuller expression. Tell the person, I am trying to speak in longer answers, please let me finish before correcting me. Or, I would like to focus on communication first and corrections afterward. This protects the flow of your thought. However, do not wait for every environment to become perfectly safe. Your confidence must eventually become portable. Begin with supportive people, then slowly use the same skills in more challenging situations. First, speak for 1 minute with someone you trust. Then, share one opinion in a small group. Then, ask one question in a class or meeting. Then, speak to someone unfamiliar. Then, enter a conversation where you cannot prepare every answer. Each step teaches your mind that your voice can survive wider spaces. The goal is not to become fearless in every situation. The goal is to stop disappearing whenever fear appears. You should also stop comparing your most vulnerable speaking moments with other people's strongest performance. You may hear someone telling a smooth story and think, I could never speak like that. Perhaps that person has told the story many times. Perhaps the topic is familiar. Perhaps they have years of daily practice. Your task is not to match their final result immediately. Your task is to tell your version of one small story today. Start with a simple structure. What happened? Why did it matter? How did you feel? What did you learn? For example, last year I missed an important opportunity because I was afraid to speak English. I had prepared my ideas, but when the moment came, I stayed silent. Someone else shared a similar idea and received attention for it. I felt disappointed, but the experience taught me that silence can protect me from embarrassment while also hiding my value. This story does not require complicated grammar, it requires honesty and order. The more often you tell real stories, the more your English develops around memory, emotion, and meaning. Your speaking becomes less mechanical. You stop sounding like someone who only knows lesson examples. You begin sounding like a person with a life. This is one of the deepest reasons to break safe English. You are not only trying to improve fluency, you are trying to make your second language life emotionally real. You deserve to laugh in English, disagree in English, comfort someone in English, explain your dreams in English, defend yourself in English, admit uncertainty in English, and share your real experiences in English. You should not be limited to ordering food, discussing weather, and answering prepared questions forever. The language must gradually become large enough to hold your humanity. That process begins every time you choose meaning over protection. You may still need safe English sometimes. There are moments when clarity, speed, or limited energy makes a simple response appropriate. There is nothing wrong with saying, "I am not sure," or "it was good," when that is truly enough. The goal is not to make every answer long. The goal is to ensure that fear is not making every answer small. You should be able to choose brevity rather than being trapped inside it. A confident speaker can say one sentence because one sentence is enough. A ashamed speaker may say one sentence because the second feels dangerous. Learn the difference inside yourself. Before ending an answer, ask, "Am I complete or am I escaping?" If you are complete, stop with confidence. If you are escaping, add one honest sentence. That one question can change your entire speaking life. You can also use a weekly courage target. Choose one speaking behavior that is slightly beyond your normal safety. This week, give one opinion without apologizing. Next week, tell one story for a full minute. The following week, ask for clarification instead of pretending to understand. Then, disagree respectfully in one real conversation. Then, explain one personal goal in detail. Do not try to change everything at once. Shame weakens through repeated evidence, not one dramatic act. Every completed courage target adds a new memory. Before, your mind stored memories of embarrassment. Now it begins storing memories of participation. I spoke even though I was nervous. I explained my real opinion. I paused and continued. I made a mistake, but the conversation remained normal. I told a story and the listener was interested. I asked a question instead of staying confused. I said no clearly. I allowed my real personality to appear. These memories gradually become stronger than the old warnings. Your brain begins updating its prediction. Speaking English does not always lead to humiliation. Sometimes it leads to connection. Sometimes it leads to respect. Sometimes it creates opportunity. Sometimes it simply feels ordinary. That ordinary feeling is valuable. You do not need every conversation to become a great success. You need speaking to stop feeling like an emotional emergency. The more often you use fuller English without disaster, the more ordinary visibility becomes. Your voice no longer feels like something that must be hidden until perfect. It becomes a working skill that improves through public use. Remember that the listener does not need access to every thought inside you. Communication always involves selection. Even in your first language, you do not say everything. The problem is not choosing what to share. The problem is when shame becomes the person making every choice. You must take that authority back. You decide when a short answer is enough. You decide when an opinion matters. You decide when a story deserves time. You decide when a boundary must be spoken. You decide when your real emotion should be named. Do not allow fear to act as your permanent editor. Fear removes too much. It deletes your questions, your humor, your intelligence, your disagreement, and your personality before anyone can hear them. You do not need to remove fear completely before changing the edit. You only need to stop obeying every deletion. When your mind says, "Do not say that," ask why. Is the thought inappropriate, unnecessary, or private? Or is it simply difficult to express? If it is only difficult, difficulty is not a reason for silence. Simplify it, divide it, describe it. Pause, ask for a word, try again. Let the sentence be imperfect. The goal is not to produce the exact version living inside your mind. The goal is to allow enough of the meaning to cross the barrier. Perhaps 60% arrives today. That is still more than zero. Tomorrow, with practice, more will arrive. Every attempt strengthens the route. This is how your English becomes capable of carrying your real life. At first, your fuller answers may feel slow. You may notice every hesitation. You may worry that the listener is losing patience. Stay with the sentence. A calm, sincere explanation often has more value than a fast, empty answer. Do not rush merely to escape attention. Speed is not your first goal. Presence is. Remain present long enough for the thought to form. If the sentence becomes difficult, say, "Let me explain that another way," then simplify. If you lose the direction, say, "The main point is," then land. If a word disappears, say, "I cannot remember the exact word, but I mean," then describe. These movements are signs of active communication. They show that you refuse to abandon the meaning. Over time, the effort becomes smaller, the expressions become familiar. The longer answers stop feeling dangerous. Your public English begins developing the range your private thoughts have always needed. One day, someone will ask you a question, and you will answer without immediately calculating the safest response. You will share a reason. You will add an example. You will reveal an honest opinion. You may make a mistake, but you will remain inside the conversation. Afterward, you may realize that you sounded more like yourself. That is the real victory, not that the grammar was perfect. Not that the listener praised your English. Not that you used advanced vocabulary. The victory is that shame did not reduce you. Your full personality may not arrive all at once. It will return sentence by sentence, one opinion at a time, one story at a time, one disagreement at a time, one emotion at a time, one moment of staying visible when the old habit tells you to disappear. From today, stop using English only as a tool for avoiding mistakes. Use it to reveal meaning. Do not give the shortest answer merely because it is safest. Give the answer that respects what you truly think. Do not wait for a perfect word before expressing an important feeling. Explain the feeling with the language you have. Do not agree merely because disagreement requires more courage. Speak your position with clarity and respect. Do not hide your questions because you fear sounding basic. A sincere question can open a deeper conversation than a polished statement. Do not allow the fear of a follow-up question to keep your first answer empty. Trust that you can pause, clarify, and respond step by step. Your English will not become free while every sentence is designed to protect you from being seen. It becomes free when you understand that being seen imperfectly is still better than remaining permanently invisible. You are not here to perform flawless English for other people. You are here to communicate, connect, contribute, and grow. Your sentences may still be simple, but they can carry truth. Your voice may still shake, but it can carry courage. Your vocabulary may still have gaps, but it can carry personality. The shame barrier weakens every time you choose one real sentence over one safe escape. So the next time someone asks what you think, do not automatically give the smallest answer. Pause and notice the larger thought waiting behind it. Choose one part of that thought. Let it come forward. Finish it. Then add one more sentence if the meaning needs it. You do not have to reveal everything. You only have to stop hiding everything. Your English has spent enough time protecting you from moments that might never happen. Now let it begin introducing the world to the person who has been waiting behind those safe answers. Chapter 6. Speak without apologizing for every mistake. Many English learners do not only make mistakes while speaking. They announce the mistake, apologize for it, explain it, and sometimes criticize themselves before the listener has even decided that anything went wrong. They begin a sentence with, "Sorry, my English is not very good." Then, halfway through the sentence, they say, "Sorry, I do not know the correct word." If the listener asks them to repeat, they immediately add, "Sorry, my pronunciation is very bad." By the end of the conversation, they have apologized more for their English than they have communicated through it. This habit may look polite, but underneath it is often shame. You are not only saying, "I made a mistake," you are saying, "Please do not judge me for being imperfect." You are trying to protect yourself before the listener has the chance to react. You lower expectations, reduce your presence, and ask for forgiveness simply because you are learning. But speaking another language is not something that requires an apology. You have not harmed anyone by pausing. You have not insulted anyone by using the wrong tense. You have not failed morally because a word did not come. You are performing a difficult skill in real time, and difficulty does not make you guilty. There is an important difference between apologizing for causing a problem and apologizing for existing as a learner. If you misunderstand an important instruction and your mistake creates extra work, a sincere apology may be appropriate. If you give someone the wrong meeting time or interrupt them rudely, saying sorry makes sense. But when you merely search for a word, speak with an accent, or create an imperfect sentence, there is usually nothing to apologize for. You can correct yourself without shrinking. You can ask for time without shame. You can request clarification without treating yourself as a burden. Imagine someone asks, "What did you think about the meeting?" You begin, "I think the meeting was useful because everyone explained their concerns, but the final decision was not very, sorry, I do not know the word. My English is not good." The conversation has now moved away from your opinion and toward your insecurity. A stronger response would be, "I think the meeting was useful because everyone explained their concerns, but the final decision was not clear enough." Perhaps clear enough was not the exact expression you originally wanted, but the thought arrived. If the word still does not come, you can say, "I cannot remember the exact word, but I mean that nobody knew what would happen next." The listener receives the meaning, and you remain inside the conversation. You do not need to apologize for using another road. This is one of the biggest changes you can make. Replace apology with communication. Instead of, "Sorry, I forgot the word," say, "The word is not coming to me, but what I mean is," instead of, "Sorry, my pronunciation is bad," say, "Let me repeat that more clearly." Instead of, "Sorry, I cannot explain," say, "The simplest way to explain it is," instead of, "Sorry, I made a grammar mistake." Correct the part calmly and continue. These new responses keep your attention on the message rather than your self-judgment. They also teach the listener how to respond to you. When you repeatedly announce that your English is bad, some listeners may begin focusing on your mistakes more than your meaning. You have already instructed them to examine your language as a problem. When you speak calmly and repair naturally, the interaction remains about the subject. You are showing that your English may be developing, but your voice is still capable of carrying a real idea. Some learners apologize before they begin because they want to lower the risk of embarrassment. They say, "My English is not good, but I will try." This sentence may bring temporary relief. If the answer goes badly, you feel that you warned the listener. If it goes well, you feel pleasantly surprised. But this habit trains your mind to treat every speaking moment as a dangerous performance. It creates the expectation that something will probably go wrong. It also makes your first words about weakness instead of meaning. Suppose you are in a meeting and someone asks for your opinion. You say, "Sorry, my English is not good, but I think maybe the plan..." Before your idea begins, you have already reduced its authority. A better opening is, "I have one concern about the plan." Then say the concern. Your English may remain simple, but the idea enters the room directly. You do not need to introduce yourself as less capable before expressing a useful thought. Perhaps you are worried that speaking without an apology will make you look overconfident. But confidence does not mean pretending your English is perfect. It means allowing the message to stand without attacking yourself first. You can be honest about a language difficulty when it is genuinely relevant. You may say, "I may need a little more time to explain this clearly." That is not shame, it is a practical request. You may say, "I am not familiar with that expression. Could you explain it?" That is not weakness, it is responsible communication. You may say, "I understand the general idea, but I want to make sure I understood the final point." That shows care. The difference is that these sentences describe a specific need. They do not turn your entire English identity into a problem. "Please give me a moment" is specific. "My English is terrible" is a global judgment. "I did not understand that phrase" is specific. "I cannot understand English" is a global judgment. "I need to say that again more clearly" is specific. "I always sound stupid" is a global judgment. Specific language leads to action. Global shame leads to silence. Many learners also apologize because they believe mistakes waste the listener's time. They feel guilty when someone must wait while they search for a word or repeat a sentence. But ordinary communication includes pauses, misunderstandings, repetition, and correction, even between native speakers. People forget names, lose thoughts, choose the wrong word, and explain themselves again. Conversation is not a perfect transfer of information. It is a cooperative process. A respectful listener can wait for a few seconds. They can ask a question. They can help identify a word. They can listen to a second explanation. You are not stealing something from them by needing a moment. You are participating in the normal work of communication. Of course, you should respect the listener. Do not create unnecessarily long explanations when a simple answer is enough. Do not refuse to prepare for important situations. Do not expect another person to correct every sentence or perform all the work for you. But respect goes in both directions. The listener's time matters, and your right to complete your thought also matters. You do not need to rush so much that the message becomes unclear simply because someone is waiting. A calm pause often saves more time than a panicked sentence. Suppose you are giving directions and forget one word. If you rush, apologize repeatedly, and restart several times, the listener becomes more confused. Instead, pause and say, "Continue straight until you reach the large building on the corner. Turn left there." The answer is simple and clear. The listener does not need to hear the internal struggle that happened before the sentence. They need the result. Another reason learners apologize is that they hear their accent as a defect. They may begin speaking and immediately feel exposed because the sounds reveal where they come from. They believe the listener will respect them less if the accent is noticeable. So they say, "Sorry for my accent." But an accent is not an offense. It is the result of learning sound through one language and then teaching the mouth another system. You should continue improving pronunciation so that people can understand you easily. Clear speech is valuable. But clarity and shame are not the same thing. You can work on sounds without treating your natural voice as something embarrassing. When a listener does not understand, do not apologize for your entire accent. Repeat the word, slow down slightly, use it inside a sentence. Choose another expression. You might say, "Let me say that again more clearly," then continue. This response focuses on communication. It does not condemn your voice. The same principle applies to grammar. When you hear your own mistake, decide whether it needs correction. If the mistake changes important information, correct it calmly. I sent the message on Monday. Actually, I sent it on Tuesday. I need 15 units. Sorry, I mean 50. The correction matters because the meaning changes. Notice that the word sorry may appear naturally in a quick correction, but the tone is different. You are not apologizing for being a learner. You are correcting information. You can also say, "Let me correct that. I meant 50. Then move forward. If the error does not change the meaning, continuing may be stronger. Suppose you say, "She work in a hospital." The grammar is imperfect, but the listener understands. You may continue, "She has been there for 5 years and works mainly with children." During later practice, you can notice and correct the pattern. She works in a hospital. But in conversation, you do not need to interrupt every sentence, announce the mistake, and rebuild the whole thought. Constant correction can damage communication more than a small error. A learner who corrects every detail may sound less fluent than someone who makes occasional mistakes but remains clear and calm. The goal is not to ignore grammar forever. The goal is to choose the right moment for correction. You can study accuracy during focused practice. You can use communication during real conversation. These two modes support one another, but they do not need the same priorities. During grammar practice, stop and examine the sentence. During a conversation, protect the meaning first. You may have been taught that mistakes must be corrected immediately or they will become permanent. This can create fear. You begin listening to every word as though you are a teacher marking an exam, but speaking skill requires movement. If every error triggers a full stop, your mouth never learns how to continue through uncertainty. You need both correction and continuity. A good practice routine may look like this: speak for 1 minute without stopping, record the answer, then listen afterward and identify 2 important mistakes, correct those patterns, and repeat the answer. This allows communication first and refinement second. You do not need to perform both jobs perfectly at the same time. Another harmful habit is apologizing after the conversation. You may send a message such as, "Sorry, my English was bad today," or you may tell the person, "I am sorry I could not explain myself well." Sometimes you may genuinely need to clarify something important, but often this final apology is shame asking for reassurance. You want the other person to say, "No, your English was good." Their reassurance gives you relief for a few moments. But if your confidence depends on receiving that reassurance after every conversation, you will continue fearing your own judgment. Learn to review the conversation privately and fairly. Ask, "Did the listener understand the main point? Did I remain present? Did I complete more than I normally would? Which part needs practice?" Then let the conversation end. Do not reopen a normal interaction simply to punish yourself publicly. The listener may have experienced the conversation as completely ordinary. Your apology teaches them that something was wrong even when they had not seen a problem. You must stop turning every imperfect experience into an event. Not every pause needs a story. Not every grammar mistake needs a confession. Not every pronunciation issue needs a period of shame afterward. Sometimes you simply spoke English, it was imperfect, and life continued. That ordinary interpretation is healthy. You need more ordinary speaking memories. Shame makes every conversation feel like a major performance. Confidence grows when speaking becomes normal work. You say the sentence, you adjust if necessary, you continue. The moment ends. You do not carry it home and place it on trial. One powerful way to change this habit is to notice the words that appear before your apologies. Perhaps you say, "Sorry, but," "Sorry, I think," "Sorry, can I ask," "Sorry, I do not understand." Some of these apologies may be cultural habits or polite expressions, but many can be replaced with stronger language. Instead of, "Sorry, can I ask a question?" say, "Can I ask a question?" Instead of, "Sorry, I do not agree," say, "I see it differently." Instead of, "Sorry, I did not understand." Say, "Could you repeat the final point?" Instead of, "Sorry, can you wait?" say, "Please give me a moment." Instead of, "Sorry, what is this word?" say, "What does this word mean in this context?" The new sentences are still respectful. They simply remove unnecessary guilt. Politeness does not require you to make yourself smaller. You can be kind and direct at the same time. Some learners also apologize when asking people to repeat because they believe understanding should happen immediately. They say, sorry, my listening is very bad. Can you say it again?" This makes a normal request feel like a personal failure. A clearer response is, "Could you say that once more, please?" Or, "I understood the beginning, but I missed the last part." Or, "Could you speak a little more slowly?" These requests improve communication without attacking your ability. There are many reasons you may miss a sentence. The person may speak quietly, use an unfamiliar expression, have a strong accent, or talk while there is background noise. The problem is not always your English. Do not automatically take full responsibility for every misunderstanding. Communication belongs to both sides. A strong communicator does not merely speak clearly, they also ask for what they need in order to understand. Another situation where apology becomes excessive is pronunciation correction. Someone says, "You mean comfortable, not comfortable." You may feel exposed and respond, "Oh, sorry, my pronunciation is so bad." A healthier response is, "Comfortable, thank you." Then repeat it once and continue. You receive the correction without turning it into humiliation. This is a powerful emotional skill. Correction does not have to become a statement about your worth. It can remain small. One sound, one word, one adjustment. Then the conversation continues. The learner who can receive correction calmly improves faster because they do not waste emotional energy defending themselves or collapsing. They are able to hear useful information without hearing an attack. This does not mean every correction is delivered kindly. Some people correct in a rude or impatient way, their tone may hurt. Even then, separate the useful information from the unnecessary behavior. Perhaps the word truly needs correction. Take the lesson. Do not accept the humiliation. You can think, the correction is useful. The tone was unkind. These are two different things. This protects your learning without giving the other person control over your self-respect. If someone repeatedly interrupts your sentences to correct every small error, you may need to set a boundary. You can say, "I appreciate the help, but please let me finish the thought before correcting me." Or, "Could you save the corrections until the end? I am trying to practice speaking continuously." This is not rude, it is a reasonable learning request. You are allowed to protect the conditions that help you improve. You should also notice when sorry becomes a filler word during uncertainty. You forget the next word and say, sorry, the thing is." You are not apologizing for a specific action. The word has become a sign that you feel uncomfortable being watched. Replace it with silence or a thinking phrase. Take one breath. Say, "Let me think." Or, "The main reason is." Or, "What I mean is." A calm 2-second pause sounds more controlled than several nervous apologies. At first, silence may feel exposed. You may believe the listener is noticing your struggle, but a pause does not reveal as much weakness as you imagine. In fact, speaking immediately without direction often creates more confusion. The strongest speakers also pause. They choose words, organize thoughts, and decide how to continue. The difference is that they do not apologize for thinking. You are allowed to think. You are allowed to take a moment before answering. You are allowed to choose a different word. You are allowed to begin again when the meaning truly requires it. The skill is to do these things without turning them into evidence against yourself. Imagine you are in an interview, and the interviewer asks an unexpected question. You do not know the answer immediately. Safe shame says, "Sorry, I do not know. My English is not enough." Calm communication says, "That is an interesting question. Let me think for a moment." Then you organize one clear point. This response shows maturity. You are not pretending to have instant knowledge. You are managing pressure. Or suppose someone asks you to explain a complex process. You begin, but the structure becomes difficult. You can say, "Let me explain it in 2 parts." Now the language becomes organized. You do not need to say, "Sorry, I cannot explain well." You can guide the listener instead. The words you choose during difficulty shape how both you and the listener understand the moment. "I cannot speak" closes the door. "Let me say it more simply" opens another road. "I do not know English" attacks the whole skill. "I do not know that expression" identifies one small gap. My pronunciation is bad, judges your entire voice. Let me repeat that word, solves the immediate problem. Build a vocabulary of recovery rather than apology. Useful expressions include, let me put that more clearly. What I mean is, I cannot remember the exact word, but the simplest way to explain it is, let me correct one detail. Could you repeat the last part? Please give me a moment to think. I want to make sure I understood correctly. I have not explained the main point yet. I would like to finish the thought. These sentences keep you active. They do not ask permission to exist. They show that you are managing communication, not surrendering to it. You should practice these expressions aloud before you need them. Under pressure, your mouth usually reaches for familiar patterns. If "sorry, my English is bad" has been repeated hundreds of times, it will appear automatically. You need to build new automatic language. Choose 5 recovery phrases and use them in practice every day. For example, let me say that more clearly. I cannot remember the word, but it means, the main point is. Could you repeat the final sentence? Give me a moment to think. Create speaking situations where each phrase becomes useful. Ask yourself a difficult question. Pause. Say, give me a moment to think. Begin an explanation with a complicated sentence. Stop and say, let me say that more clearly. Choose an object whose English name you do not know. Say, I cannot remember the word, but it is something people use too. This practice turns recovery into a skill your mouth can access naturally. Another helpful exercise is the apology count. Record yourself speaking for 5 minutes, or have a conversation with a trusted person. Count every time you say sorry because of English. Afterward, examine each one. Was a real apology needed? Could you replace it with a clarification? Could you simply continue? You may be surprised by how often shame enters through one small word. Do not try to remove every sorry immediately. Begin by noticing. Then choose one common situation to change. Perhaps this week you will stop saying, "Sorry, my English is bad." Next week you will replace, "Sorry, I do not understand," with, "Could you explain that another way?" The following week you will stop apologizing every time you pause. Small changes are easier to maintain. You should also examine why you want reassurance so strongly. Perhaps in the past, people praised perfect answers and criticized mistakes harshly. You learned that approval depended on performance. Now every conversation feels like a request. Please tell me I did well. When you apologize, you may secretly hope the listener will comfort you. There is nothing wrong with appreciating encouragement, but your speaking confidence cannot remain dependent on other people rescuing you after every imperfect sentence. You must become capable of saying, "That conversation was not perfect, but I stayed present. I made several mistakes and my main message still arrived. I felt embarrassed, but I did not disappear. I need more practice, but I do not need to attack myself." This internal response builds stability. Praise may come or not come. The listener may notice your progress or not notice it. You continue because your goal is larger than one person's reaction. You are building a voice you can rely on. This does not mean you should become defensive when someone does not understand. Confidence is not pretending the listener is always wrong. If your message is unclear, take responsibility for making it clearer. But responsibility is different from shame. Responsibility says, "The listener did not understand, so I will try another explanation." Shame says, "The listener did not understand, so I am embarrassing." Responsibility produces action. Shame produces collapse. Suppose you explain something and the listener looks confused. You can ask, "Which part was unclear?" Then respond specifically. Or, "Let me give you an example." Or, the short version is, "You are not denying the communication problem, you are solving it." That is stronger than apologizing repeatedly without improving the message. Another skill is learning to correct yourself naturally without losing your authority. You might say, "The project began in May, let me correct that, it began in March." Then continue. Or, "I said the first option, but I meant the second." The correction is direct. There is no emotional performance around it. You do not need to say, "Oh no, I am always making mistakes." "Sorry, my mind is not working." Those extra sentences weaken the communication and make the mistake feel larger than it is. Correct the fact. Continue with the message. Keep mistakes in proportion. A wrong month is one wrong month. It is not proof that your entire answer is unreliable. A forgotten word is one missing word. It is not proof that your vocabulary has disappeared. A pronunciation problem is one unclear sound. It is not proof that your voice should be hidden. Shame expands small events into global conclusions. Your job is to reduce them back to their real size. You may say, that word needs more pronunciation practice. Not, my accent is terrible. You may say, I need to review this tense. Not, my grammar is hopeless. You may say, I became nervous in that situation. Not, I cannot speak around people. The first statements create a path forward. The second statements build a prison. This chapter is not asking you to become careless. It is asking you to stop treating carelessness and imperfection as the same thing. You should prepare for important presentations. You should practice difficult vocabulary. You should improve pronunciation. You should study recurring grammar errors. You should respect the listener by aiming for clarity. But careful preparation should produce greater freedom, not greater shame. The better you prepare, the more willing you should become to communicate. If preparation makes you even more afraid of mistakes because you believe all effort will be wasted by one error, your relationship with learning has become unhealthy. A prepared speaker may still pause. A skilled speaker may still misspeak. A fluent speaker may still correct themselves. These moments do not cancel the preparation or skill. They are part of live communication. Give yourself permission to be human while using English. Another area where apology appears is social identity. You may meet someone who speaks English fluently and immediately place yourself below them. You say, your English is very good, mine is terrible. The comparison creates distance before the conversation begins. You may admire their ability, but you do not need to insult your own. You could say, your English is very fluent. I am still developing my speaking, so I enjoy conversations that give me practice. This statement is honest without being ashamed. It presents you as an active learner, not a failed speaker. Language development is not a hierarchy of human worth. The fluent person is not more valuable. They have greater ability in one skill. You may have abilities they do not possess. Do not enter every English conversation as the inferior person. Enter as someone with a message and a developing tool. That mindset changes posture, volume, and willingness to continue. You can respect another person's fluency without surrendering your place in the conversation. There may be moments when you genuinely feel embarrassed. The mistake was noticeable, the listener reacted, your face becomes warm, and you want to escape. You do not need to pretend the emotion is absent. Take one breath, acknowledge it silently. I feel embarrassed. Then add, but I can continue. This second sentence matters. Emotion is present, but it is not the decision maker. You might smile briefly and say, that did not come out the way I intended. Let me try again. Then give the clearer version. This is a natural human response. It does not deny the awkwardness, but it refuses to surrender to it. You do not need to become emotionally cold. You need to become emotionally recoverable. Embarrassment may visit, but it should not control the rest of the conversation. Perhaps you mispronounce a word and the result sounds funny. You and the listener may laugh. Laughter does not always equal humiliation. Sometimes the healthiest response is to laugh lightly, correct the word, and continue. The difference is whether you remain in control of your dignity. If the laughter is friendly and the relationship is safe, the moment can become ordinary. If the laughter is cruel, remember that the other person's behavior does not define your ability. In either case, do not turn one moment into a lifelong command to remain silent. Your English will improve through thousands of imperfect uses. Some will feel smooth, some will feel awkward. Some will produce mistakes you remember. Others will produce sentences that make you proud. You cannot collect the strong moments without risking the difficult ones. Apology tries to reduce that risk by making you smaller before anything happens. Courage lets the sentence stand. From today, notice what happens immediately after a mistake. Do you remain connected to the meaning? Or do you leave the conversation mentally and begin judging yourself? That shift is important. The listener may still be waiting for the next part of your answer while you are internally replaying the error. Return to the present. The mistake has already happened. Ask, what am I still trying to communicate? Then finish the thought. Suppose you say, I have lived here since 3 years. You hear the mistake and feel embarrassed. Do not disappear. You may correct it quickly. I have lived here for 3 years, and during that time I have built strong connections with the community. The answer continues, or perhaps you decide not to correct it because the listener understood. Continue with the next sentence. Either choice can be reasonable. The important thing is that the mistake does not steal the rest of your message. You should measure recovery, not only accuracy. After a conversation, do not ask only, "How many mistakes did I make?" Ask, "How many times did I continue after one?" The second question reveals speaking strength. A person who makes 5 errors and completes every thought may be developing more useful fluency than someone who creates 2 perfect sentences and remains silent for the rest of the conversation. Completion matters. Presence matters. Recovery matters. Accuracy will grow through repeated use, feedback, and practice. But accuracy cannot grow inside a voice that shame refuses to release. You may need a personal rule. One mistake does not receive more than one correction. Correct it once if necessary, then move forward. Do not repeat the same sentence 5 times searching for perfection. Do not explain why the mistake happened. Do not apologize repeatedly. Do not ask the listener whether your English is terrible. One repair, then continuation. For example, I did not go to the meeting because I was ill. Continue. I informed my manager in the morning and completed the urgent work from home. The correction is finished. Do not return to it. Your mind may still want to replay the original error, but the conversation has moved forward. Follow the conversation. This rule helps you stop turning small corrections into large interruptions. You can also practice intentional mistakes to reduce their emotional power. During private practice, say a sentence incorrectly on purpose, then correct it calmly. He go to work every day. Let me correct that. He goes to work every day. I have seen her yesterday. A better version is, I saw her yesterday. This may seem unusual, but it teaches your mouth that correction is a normal speaking movement rather than an emergency. Then practice vocabulary gaps. I found the event I cannot remember the exact word. It made me feel excited and hopeful. The sentence survives. Then practice misunderstanding. Could you repeat that? I missed the final part. No apology, no collapse. You are rehearsing emotional control as much as language. When these moments appear in real conversation, they will feel more familiar. Another useful practice is confident repetition. Choose 10 sentences that you often say too quietly because you fear mistakes. Speak each one at a comfortable, audible volume. I would like to share my opinion. I do not completely agree with that decision. I need a moment to think. Could you explain that more clearly? I am still learning, but this is what I understand. I made a mistake. Let me correct it. I cannot remember the exact word, but I can explain the meaning. I would like to finish my sentence. I did not understand the last part. The main point I want to make is, these sentences teach your mouth to remain present during moments when shame usually makes you disappear. Your tone does not need to be aggressive. Calm directness is enough. You are not demanding special treatment. You are communicating your needs. As your speaking improves, you may still notice the old apology habit returning in high-pressure situations. Do not judge yourself. Habits become stronger when stress is high. Simply notice and adjust. If you say, "Sorry, my English," stop gently and replace it. What I mean is, this correction itself becomes evidence of growth. You are learning to hear shame before it completes the old sentence. Over time, the new language becomes natural. You begin a conversation with the idea instead of a warning. You ask for clarification without embarrassment. You pause without explaining the pause. You correct information without attacking yourself. You receive feedback without turning it into humiliation. You finish the thought after a mistake. This is what speaking courage looks like in daily life. It is rarely dramatic. It appears in small moments when you refuse to apologize for learning. Remember, there is no shame in respecting accuracy. There is no shame in asking for help. There is no shame in saying you do not know something. There is no shame in needing more time. The shame barrier grows when you believe these ordinary needs make you less worthy of being heard. They do not. A learner who asks for clarification is still a communicator. A learner who pauses is still a speaker. A learner who makes a mistake is still intelligent. A learner who needs correction is still progressing. Your value is not suspended until your English becomes flawless. You are allowed to participate now. You are allowed to take up conversational space now. You are allowed to express an opinion with imperfect grammar now. You are allowed to ask someone to wait while you organize a meaningful thought. You are allowed to receive correction and continue with dignity. You are allowed to finish without apologizing for every imperfect step that brought the sentence to its end. The next time you make a mistake, resist the automatic urge to explain yourself. Do not immediately say, "My English is bad." Look at the message. Is it still clear? If yes, continue. If not, repair it. Use one calm sentence. Let me say that again. What I mean is, the correct detail is, then finish the thought. Allow the moment to remain small. Do not carry it into the next sentence. Do not carry it into the rest of the day. Do not turn it into proof that you should speak less tomorrow. Your mistakes do not need apologies. They need practice, proportion, and recovery. Your listener does not need a perfect performance. They need a speaker who remains connected to meaning, and you do not need to ask forgiveness for every sign that your English is still growing. Growth is not embarrassing. Using an unfinished skill is not embarrassing. Being heard while learning is not embarrassing. The real loss is allowing apology to consume the space where your message should have been. So let the sentence begin without a warning. Let it continue without constant self-judgment. Let a mistake appear without becoming the center of the conversation. Correct what matters. Release what does not. Then keep speaking. Your English voice will become stronger not when it finally makes no mistakes, but when it no longer believes that every mistake requires permission to continue. Chapter 7. Become the person who speaks before feeling ready. There is one final lesson that separates learners who stay trapped for years from learners who eventually become confident English speakers. It is not a better grammar book. It is not a larger vocabulary. It is not a secret pronunciation method. It is the decision to stop waiting until you feel completely ready. Many learners quietly make a promise to themselves. When my English becomes good enough, then I will start speaking confidently. But that day never comes. Because every time your English improves, your standards rise even higher. When you knew only 500 words, you believed 2,000 words would make you confident. When you reached 2,000 words, you believed you needed advanced grammar. When your grammar improved, you believed your pronunciation still wasn't perfect. Then you wanted a better accent, then faster replies, then more natural expressions. The finish line keeps moving. Confidence built on perfection is a race with no ending. You must understand something that changes everything. Confidence is not the reward for speaking. Confidence is built by speaking. The people who now sound relaxed in English were not born fearless. They collected hundreds of conversations where they felt uncomfortable. They spoke while their hands were shaking. They spoke while searching for words. They spoke after making embarrassing mistakes. They spoke when they wished they could disappear. Every conversation became another piece of evidence that they could survive. That is how confidence grows. Not by avoiding fear, by outliving it. Think about learning to swim. You cannot stand beside the pool reading books forever. At some point, your body must enter the water. The first moments feel uncomfortable. Your movements are awkward. You swallow water. You panic a little. But each minute inside the pool teaches your body something that no book ever could. English works exactly the same way. Listening prepares you. Reading teaches you. Studying strengthens you. But speaking transforms you. Transformation only happens inside real conversations. Many learners believe they need one magical day where fear disappears. That day almost never arrives. Instead, courage usually sounds much quieter. It says, I am nervous, but I will answer anyway. I may make mistakes, but I will finish my thought. I don't know every word, but I know enough to communicate. That is real courage. You are not trying to remove fear. You are refusing to let fear make your decisions. There is another trap that keeps learners silent. They compare their beginning with someone else's middle. You watch fluent speakers online. You listen to native speakers. You compare yourself with people who have spent thousands of hours speaking English. Then you judge yourself for not sounding the same. But every fluent speaker once had a first conversation. Every confident speaker once forgot simple words. Every natural speaker once felt embarrassed. You are looking at the final chapter of someone else's journey while criticizing yourself for still being on chapter 1. That comparison will always steal your confidence. Instead, compare yourself only with yesterday's version of yourself. Ask different questions. Did I speak longer today? Did I recover faster after a mistake? Did I hesitate less than last week? Did I express one idea more clearly? Those are the questions that build progress. Not, do I sound exactly like a native speaker? There is another truth most learners never hear. People rarely remember your mistakes. They remember how you made them feel. If you smile, if you stay engaged, if you listen carefully, if you show genuine interest, most people completely forget the small grammar mistakes you keep replaying inside your mind. Your personality is always louder than your imperfections. The greatest English speakers are not the ones who never make mistakes. They are the ones who continue communicating after mistakes. That is why your goal is no longer perfect English. Your goal is dependable English. English that appears when you need it. English that carries your ideas. English that allows people to know the real you. Because underneath all the grammar, underneath every vocabulary list, underneath every pronunciation exercise, there is a person waiting to be heard. That person has ideas, dreams, stories, opinions, questions, humor, kindness, intelligence. Your English is simply the bridge that carries those things into the world. Do not spend years decorating the bridge while refusing to cross it. Cross it. Every single day. Some days your sentences will be beautiful. Some days they will be broken. Some conversations will make you proud. Others will humble you. Both kinds are necessary, because every conversation is building something much more valuable than perfect English. It is building trust in yourself. One day, without realizing exactly when it happened, you will notice something surprising. You will answer questions without rehearsing. You will laugh in English without translating. You will tell stories naturally. You will stop counting your mistakes. You will simply speak. Not because your English became perfect, but because shame quietly left the room. And when shame leaves, your real voice finally arrives. That is the voice you have been searching for all along. Not a perfect voice, not a native voice. Your voice, strong enough to be heard, calm enough to continue, confident enough to finish every conversation. And from this day forward, every time fear whispers, "You are not ready," smile quietly and answer, "Maybe not completely, but I am speaking anyway." Because that single decision is where every confident English speaker begins. If you have listened to this entire audiobook, then something important has already happened. You did not come here because you wanted to memorize more English rules. You came because you wanted your English to finally become a part of you. Remember this for the rest of your journey. Fluent speakers are not the people who never hesitate. They are the people who keep speaking after hesitation. Confident speakers are not the people who never feel embarrassed. They are the people who refuse to let embarrassment decide whether they will speak. Your voice was never the problem. Shame was. Every lesson in this book has been helping you remove one invisible wall after another, not by changing who you are, but by uncovering the confident speaker who has been there all along. From today, stop measuring yourself by perfect grammar. Stop measuring yourself by a perfect accent. Stop measuring yourself by the number of mistakes you make. Instead, ask yourself only 3 questions every day. Did I speak today? Did I finish my thoughts? Did I become a little braver than yesterday? If your answer is yes, then your English is already moving forward. Remember, every confident English speaker you admire once felt exactly what you feel today. They were nervous, they froze, they searched for words, they made mistakes. The only difference is that they kept going. Now it is your turn. Walk into conversations with curiosity instead of fear. Speak before your confidence feels perfect. Finish your sentences even when they are not perfect. Trust your ideas even while your English is still growing. Because every sentence you complete is another brick in the foundation of your future fluency. One day you will suddenly realize something beautiful. You are no longer translating. You are no longer hiding. You are no longer apologizing. You are simply speaking. And that day will not arrive because you became perfect. It will arrive because you never stopped showing up. So close this book with one promise to yourself. I will not wait to feel ready. I will become ready by speaking. That single promise can change your English forever. Thank you for spending this journey with English Mindset Academy. Until the next book, keep training your mind, trust your voice, and remember, fluency doesn't begin when fear disappears. Fluency begins the moment you decide that fear will no longer stop you from speaking.